Ryota is nearly 50 years old, yet he has achieved nothing. Although he still calls himself a writer, he has not published any works since winning a novel award and publishing a book in his youth. Now, in his middle age, he works at a private detective agency under the pretext of collecting material for his novels. Being a detective sounds respectable, but the daily tasks mostly involve finding lost pets and gathering evidence of extramarital affairs. That day, Ryota specifically bought a cake to visit his mother. On the way, he ran into a childhood classmate and learned that an elderly person living alone in their community had been discovered 3 days after passing away. The classmate moved back to take care of their parents because of this. A hint of guilt flashed across Ryota's face, but quickly dissipated. His father had passed away 6 months ago, and he had hardly visited his mother. He had other motives for this visit. Once inside, Ryota began rummaging through drawers and cabinets. After a while, he only found some expired lottery tickets and pawn tickets, with nothing of value. When the door opened, he hurriedly tried to hide what he was doing, but his mother saw right through him. It seemed she was already accustomed to her son coming to seek money and valuables. Ryota pretended to casually ask about the paintings left by his father, mentioning a television program that discussed their considerable value. His mother, however, calmly replied that there were no such paintings in the house. All of his belongings had been cleared out the day after his funeral. Ryota found it hard to accept and could only leave dejectedly. His mother took out some homemade ice cream from the fridge, which had frozen solid. Ryota complained that if she wanted to eat it, why not buy something better, since she had a pension? His mother murmured that if she bought ready-made ones, the children from his sister's family would eat them all in an instant, and only this laborious kind could be saved. Hearing that his sister often came over, Ryota hinted to his mother to be careful, wondering what plans she might have. His mother, however, took no notice and simply said that there was no profit to be made here anymore. Having not visited for a long time, Ryota noticed that his mother's life had changed a lot. She had started listening to classical music and even ordered a record player that could be taken into the bathroom. The two of them struggled to chip away at the ice in their cups. Life was tough, yet his mother rarely complained. On the balcony, she watered the orange tree that was planted by Ryota during his high school years. His mother said that the tree had never bloomed or borne fruit, but she had always treated it as her own, taking care of it meticulously until now. Ryota sensed the deeper meaning in her words and retorted that he still had some use. His mother did not respond further, only murmuring that a typhoon was approaching and the tree needed to be moved indoors. Ryota impatiently agreed, but while bending down to move the tree, he accidentally shattered the glass behind him. His mother had to clean up the broken pieces again. Before parting, Ryota slipped some money to his mother. She hesitated slightly, but ultimately accepted it with a sense of relief. The amount was not large and did not significantly improve her life, but in his mother's heart, it was proof that her son was capable of giving back to the family. As she descended the stairs, his mother was out of breath. This old building without an elevator was indeed unsuitable for the elderly. The sun was warm, and the mother hunched over, following her son. Speaking of her solitary journey here a few days ago, a butterfly had always accompanied her. The mother suspected that the butterfly was transformed from Ryota's father, so she told the butterfly that she was doing well alone and did not need to rush to pick her up. After parting with his mother, Ryota went alone to the pawn shop, wanting to pawn his camera. The owner recognized him, as Ryota's father was also a regular customer. The owner kept complaining that Ryota's father always pawned various items under the pretext of his child's serious illness. Ryota learned that the painting had long been pawned by his father and was a replica, completely worthless. The last glimmer of hope was thus extinguished. Life may have always been like this, with no surprises that come out of nowhere. With nothing to gain at home, Ryota had to find a way through work. He handed over the collected evidence of infidelity to the investigated party, thus earning a commission fee and also being able to ask for an extra sum from the investigated. This time, the subject was a middle-aged woman having an affair. She looked at the evidence collected by Ryota at her husband's request and sighed sadly. How did life come to this? This casual lament touched Ryota. How did life come to this? But with the money in hand, he had no time for deep thoughts and turned to the racing casino, hoping to double his winnings to pay for rent, loans, and child support. and to buy his son Shingo a pair of Mizuno baseball gloves. As expected, the money he had just won was lost again. Ryota borrowed money from a colleague for one last gamble, but returned disappointed. Back at the office, a colleague lamented that the number of men hiring investigators to check on their wives was increasing, sighing that people's hearts were narrow. The boss, however, said with a hint of pride that he relied on this narrow world for a living and should be grateful for it. In fact, Ryota was also secretly following his ex-wife. Returning to his messy rented place, Ryota recalled the events of the day. He took out a notepad and wrote, "Why has life come to this?" Perhaps it was a lament, or just a writing material noted down casually. His ex-wife had a new partner, a successful real estate businessman. Shingo had already received Mizuno gloves. Seeing the three of them playing together intimately like a family, Ryota felt a surge of jealousy and bitterness. He found his son while pretending to go to the bathroom and asked if his mother would remarry. Shingo, however, did not know, and Ryota urged him to find out. Before leaving, Shingo turned to ask his father if this month's child support was okay. Ryota forced a calm response of "don't worry," but felt no assurance in his heart. The next day, Ryota went to the publishing house. The editor informed him that there was a gambling-themed manga for which he could write the script with a generous payment. Ryota saw this as an insult to his dignity and declined, citing that his novel was about to be completed. Ryota turned to his sister for money, but she looked at him with disgust, saying that his award was 15 years ago, and he should have woken up, resembling their father too much. If they are willing to work hard, their mother wouldn't have to still live in the old house today. After a round of blame, the sister ultimately did not lend money, but Ryota managed to learn from her the place where their mother hid her money. To raise funds, Ryota secretly took on jobs with his colleagues. They targeted a high school student who was secretly meeting with a tutor. In the car, a colleague asked Ryota about his ambitions when he was young. Ryota expressed his desire to become a public servant because he did not want to end up like his father. They eventually reached an agreement with the high school student and obtained some money. At the time of payment, the boy fiercely said, "I will never become someone like Ryota." These words seemed to sting Ryota, and he angrily retorted, "Do you think it's easy to become the person you want to be?" Afterward, they followed the husband of a middle-aged woman who was having an affair, sold the photos to the woman, and Ryota finally gathered enough for child support and could buy his son a pair of Mizuno sneakers. However, the rent was still unsettled. Yet, things did not go as planned. Ryota's private extortion of the high school student was soon discovered by his boss, and that money naturally ended up in the boss's pocket. When visiting his son, Ryota rummaged through his wallet several times, but still couldn't gather enough. He had to lie, claiming he was busy with work and forgot to withdraw money. His excuse was easily seen through by his ex-wife Kyoko, but she still gave him a chance to be alone with their son while she hurried off to work. The father and son strolled through a sneaker store together. Understanding, Shingo chose a pair of affordable shoes, but Ryota forced a light-hearted demeanor and said, "No need to settle. Let's buy Mizuno." At the time of payment, he rubbed the shoes on the ground, claiming they had a defect, and ended up buying them at a discounted price. Ryota asked about his ex-wife's new relationship again, and Shingo relayed all the information he had gathered. Even though he was reluctant, it seemed Ryota already had an answer in his heart. Passing by a lottery ticket shop, he took his son inside. Shingo initially resisted, but after Ryota's persuasion, he eventually relented and carefully selected numbers. Finally, Ryota called his mother to say he would bring his grandson to visit. Coincidentally, his sister's family was also there. His brother-in-law was repairing the glass that Ryota had broken, and his sister reminded their mother to be cautious, saying Ryota hadn't returned home in a long time and might have ulterior motives. On the way, Ryota continuously pointed out buildings from his childhood memories to Shingo. Passing by the community slide, Ryota recounted how his father had taken him there to play on a typhoon night when he was a child. Shingo looked at the slide with envy. At their mother's house, a dispute arose between the siblings. Ryota believed that his sisters should not use their mother's pension to pay for the child's ice skating lessons, while the sister retorted, saying Ryota had also used their mother's pension money to let the child learn the violin. Both felt that the other was taking advantage of their mother's financial resources. As the typhoon approached, the sister's family hurriedly left. Kyoko also came to pick up the child, but her mother had already prepared the meal, and Kyoko could not refuse, so she had to stay. The family of four cooked, dined, chatted, and reminisced in this small apartment, a warm scene that had been absent for many years. The rain intensified, and Kyoko wanted to leave, but her mother insisted on keeping her, and Ryota also chimed in, so Kyoko stayed again. The mother took out Ryota's childhood essay to show her grandson, but Shingo showed a reluctance to become like his father. Yet he still thought about living with his father and grandmother. Shingo felt that if he won the lottery, they could all live together again. Kyoko noticed that Ryota had bought a lottery ticket for his son and was quite displeased. Ryota argued that the lottery was not gambling, but a dream worth 300 yen. Kyoko naturally disagreed with this reasoning. She did not want her son to pick up any bad habits from Ryota. The mother laid out the bedding, sat alone in the living room, and turned up the volume of the television. In the room, Kyoko asked Ryota if he was still writing. Ryota claimed that pure literature was already outdated, and now there were only light novels and popular reading materials, stating that he was trying to create a manga original, and if successful, he could pay child support on time. But Kyoko saw through him. This person always blamed the times for problems, gazed into the distant future, but never worked hard on the present. Kyoko believed that if Ryota truly wanted to be a good father, he should have worked a bit harder before. Ryota had no words to respond. He asked Kyoko about her new relationship, inquiring if there had been any physical intimacy. Kyoko did not avoid the question and frankly admitted that it had indeed happened. Ryota felt a bit frustrated, thinking that Kyoko was not in it for love, but was merely calculating. Kyoko coldly replied that this was life planning. Adults cannot survive on love alone. As the night grew late and the wind howled, Shingo was already fast asleep. A call came from the real estate agent, but Kyoko did not answer. Ryota quietly searched in his mother's room. He had learned from his sister last time about where their mother hid money. But when he eagerly opened the paper bag, he found only 2 pieces of cardboard. His sister had played a trick on him. Reluctantly, Ryota eventually found an inkstone behind his father's memorial tablet, which was probably not a valuable item either. He put away the inkstone, offered a stick of incense to his father, and then cleaned the incense burner. At that moment, his mother woke up. People grow old, and sleep becomes less. The mother whispered by the window. When they lived in the old house, she always feared that a typhoon would blow off the roof. After moving here, she no longer worried about that. Unexpectedly, after living here for 40 years, this place had likely become her final resting place. She also mentioned Ryota's father, saying that when he left, he did not add to the family's troubles. But recently, he had been quietly entering her dreams, making her worry endlessly. The radio was playing Teresa Tang's The Premonition of Parting, singing, "Deeper than the sea, bluer than the sky, I can no longer love more." Ryota asked his mother what kind of life his father truly wanted, which he never achieved, perhaps due to the times. His mother replied that she still doesn't understand what he sought. He always attributed his shortcomings to the era. Why do men never cherish the present? Always chasing after what has passed, dreaming of unattainable wishes, troubled by this, how can they find peace? Ryota bowed his head, seemingly deep in thought. Late at night, Ryota took the awakened Shingo to the slide in their community. When he was young, his father often brought him there on typhoon nights. His mother and Kyoko woke up, saw the father and son leaving, and did not stop them. Outside, the wind and rain were fierce, while inside, it was peaceful. After a long silence, his mother finally asked Kyoko, "Is there truly no possibility left with him?" Though Kyoko felt reluctant, she honestly said that Ryota was not suited for marriage and family. His mother seemed to have known this outcome beforehand. She just wanted to try one last time. She handed Kyoko the umbilical cord from when her grandson was born. In the heavy rain, the father and son hid inside the slide eating snacks. Ryota asked Shingo what he wanted to be when he grew up, and Shingo answered, just like Ryota did when he was young, a civil servant. Shingo then asked his father what he had wanted but had not become. Ryota pondered for a moment and said to Shingo, "Not really. However, whether or not dreams are realized is not important. What matters is whether one has the courage to pursue them." Kyoko came over, and while Shingo went to buy hot drinks, Kyoko said to Ryota, "Since she has decided, Please let them move forward. Do you understand? At that moment, Ryota seemed to be not answering Kyoko, but speaking to himself. I understand. I have always understood. Shingo's lottery tickets were blown away by the wind, and the father and son hurried out to look for them. Kyoko said, "Don't daydream," but ultimately joined in the search. In the heavy rain, the three of them desperately picked up what was an unreachable yet indispensable dream. The next morning, the wind and rain ceased. After breakfast, the three of them walked in the bright sunlight. His mother waved goodbye from the balcony, and everything returned to tranquility. Ryota went to the pawn shop again, and the owner informed him that the inkstone was genuine, worth 300,000 yen. Ryota was both surprised and delighted. His father had lived a life of hardship, yet the last thing he left behind was a treasure. The owner took out a book that Ryota had written in his youth and asked him to sign it. This book was given to him by his father many years ago, who said it was a first edition and would be valuable in the future. In reality, his father had given a copy to all the neighbors. Ryota had once had a fierce argument with his father over his ambition to become a novelist, but when he truly became a writer, his father was still proud of him. On the train, Ryota held the inkstone left by his father, while Shingo held the lottery tickets Ryota had bought for him. They both possessed a dream given to them by their father. As they parted, Kyoko reminded him again about the overdue child support. This time, Ryota did not seek an excuse. After the mother and child chatted and left, Ryota stood in place for a long time, watching their figures disappear, and then turned around, merging into the crowd alone.